Chris Redding and the Allman Brothers, Little Richard.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Actually, I lived in Tallahassee for a few years,
Yeah.
and Macon was actually one of the places I was looking to move to after, like when I was ready to leave Tallahassee. And what sold me on it was you guys have like a college prep baseball team,
Yeah.
and it's the Macon Bacon,
That's correct.
and their mascot's name is Kevin Bacon, and I
I know,
just
isn't that
thought that was
great?
the funniest thing.
I
So
love those guys. That whole team, the whole organization's really great. It really is.
yeah,
They've done a lot, and the one of the universities at T4 Mercer, we have a pretty good baseball team as well, and they're pretty good. Our ladies basketball team has always been really great,
oh
and we actually, I can't remember if it was a ladies basketball or was it men's basketball, but we about 2 years ago actually one of the big schools. I think it was Duke.
The men's.
That's right. It was the men's basketball. But we beat Duke, and everybody was just freaked out that we were competing at that kind of level. So it was, but I love that baseball team, and of course this year there's not anything really going on much, but
yeah. You know, I know that our because we have a college league in Texas here, and I know they played, or they were supposed to play. They
yeah,
played the first.
that's what happened here. They played a little bit, and then they quit. They just didn't start back up again.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
Yeah.
All right, let me post this really quick and we should be good to go. And so
Sounds
basically
good.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an intro. I'll introduce you. We'll talk about what got you into music. We'll talk about, kind of your origin story, what got you into music. We'll talk about your new releases, any upcoming releases. We'll talk about like the creative process, all that fun stuff.
Perfect.
And we'll just kind of see where the conversation goes.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Okie dokie. Should be good. Post. All right. Come on, post. There it is. All right, cool. We are good to go. So if you are ready, we'll jump into it.
I'm ready.
All right, awesome. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Joey Stuckey. How's it going today, Joey?
Well, my friend, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. It's been a little bit of a journey trying to make this happen because I know we were supposed to do a podcast, was it about a month or two ago? And technical issues. Yeah, it's always technical issues. Like if
always
a ever gets canceled, it's because technical issues.
Well, technology is great until it doesn't work. So
yeah, absolutely. But first off, I want to thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving us the time to sit here and chat for a little bit.
Absolutely.
So before we jump too deep into everything, what's kind of your origin story? What got you started in music? All that, like a brief origin. What's your brief origin story?
You hit my weakness. I'm very verbose, but I'll make it as short as I can. Really, what happened was I am a brain tumor survivor, and I am blind as a result of that. And I have some other health challenges as well. So most of my early life, until I was about 13, 14 years old, really was focused on survival and just getting through the day, going to school, doing what I had to do as a kid. But I almost died a couple of times from various complications, all sort of brain tumor related. But when I was about 13, I got pneumonia really bad. and had to be homeschooled for a few months. And I was just miserable. And I discovered, because I was sort of restless and miserable, didn't feel like doing anything, was bedridden, but then my mind was active. And I discovered on Saturday nights from midnight to 3 a.m., there was a show called After Space. And that was on the local, this is back in Jacksonville, Florida. So it was on the local public radio station. And they played old time radio shows. And for those who are not familiar with radio, I mean, it basically was the same kind of programming you see today on television, except that it was done without any visual. And so the dialogue, the audio, the sound effects, and the music had to tell the full story. And for a blind kid, this was a revolutionary concept. And I was just so inspired by the technological prowess of these people that created this programming. And granted, most of the radio shows were 40s and 50s and 60s, but there were modern radio shows when I was a kid in the late 80s. There were modern radio shows being made as well. And I thought, man, I could do this. I could make these sounds. I could record this music. I could do these things. And so that was the first sort of light bulb that set the direction of my life. And I'm a full-time producer. I own my own studio. I have since I was 19 years old. So I mean, that's what turned me on to audio. And then I moved to Macon, Georgia, where I'm the official music ambassador, and I got my first job working as a sound technician in a planetarium here in town. And what happened then was that several people came to me. Now, all the other people that worked there were 18, 21, kind of that range. They came to me and said, "Hey, we hear you got some recording equipment in your house. My band needs to make a demo." And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. Come on over, let's do it." Because I had a little attic studio, and very, very primitive, but I got the job done. Mm-hmm. And once that happened, I knew I was going to make that a career. But what started the musical journey? My dad and my mom were both very enthusiastic music consumers. My mom was more into what we call sacred music, hymns and stuff like that. My dad was into the real old school country, like Hank Williams Sr. and that sort of thing. And but they were just surrounded our house in music all the time. It was a very big part of all of our celebrations and ways of solace as well. So at any rate, one day a garage band came into the studio at my house. I was 15, 16 years old, and they played an original song. And I said, "Wow, I haven't heard that song. Whose song is that?" They're like, "Oh, we wrote that." Oh. And that's when all of a sudden I knew that I had another purpose, and that was to share my life through the vehicle of music. And I haven't done anything else ever since. I've been doing it forever. By the time I was 19, I had a pro studio that was worthy to record serious records, and I've been doing that ever since. So that's kind of my origin story. It's complicated, but it's been interesting.
Yeah, it's always kind of interesting and kind of crazy how music is going to enter your life and how it's going to or audio music, however you want to look at it.
Yeah,
it's crazy how it's going to enter your life and essentially change it for the better.
That is so true. That is so true. I mean, I tell my students that I think, if you say, well, how do I? It's a tough business. It's a strange business. In many ways, it's counterintuitive. But the big thing is, it's the most powerful force for positive change that I know, and it's something that literally has no boundaries. You can hear music, any culture, in any language, and still be moved by it, and that's pretty impressive. Just for something, to have that kind of ability to break down walls and to communicate. That's very powerful stuff. So it's when you take it on as a career, it has to be a calling. It has to be a vocation. It has to be a natural extension of your spirit, because otherwise it's really hard to put up with all the crazy stuff that goes along with it. So you gotta love it so much it hurts not to do it. Is how I feel about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then at what point did you actually start playing music? Was this?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So my dad played guitar, and he and his twin brother loved music and played it. I started playing guitar when I was around. I mean, I picked up a guitar, you know, uh, maybe when I was 15, something like that. Just and didn't know what I was doing, just kind of messed with it. But I started taking lessons when I was around 17, and I had my first band, and everything around that time as I was learning and growing and all that kind of thing. So that's really kind of when I started playing guitar. My teacher, who was absolutely brilliant, and still a dear friend. He's really his family more than friend, but he taught me a lot, and he also got me involved with some of his other students in my first band, and we were all guitar players because that's what he teaches. And so there was like four guitar players, and all of us sang as well. And he said, "Well, you're not going." I said, "That's a lot of guitar players." He said, "Well, you're not going to play guitar. You're going to play bass." I was like, "I don't know anything about bass." He's like, "You're going to learn." So I started playing bass, and I played bass and guitar as a session musician at a pretty high competitive level, and sing at that same level. And then I play keyboards and percussion and some mandolin and some stuff like that at a sort of low side of adequate level. So I dabble with a few things, like I can do pads and stuff like that in the studio. In the studio, my piano work sounds pretty good, but I cheat. I overdub a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So so in the studio it sounds good, but because I'm blind, a lot of people think of me as just assume that I'm a piano player. And they're like, "Hey, will you come play piano?" I was like, "Nope, you do not want to hear that. Neither do I. But I will bring my guitar."
Yeah. That's
So,
do you think they kind of, you get that stigma because of like Ray Charles and Stevie Wonder?
Absolutely. And look, hey, it's honestly, I mean, seriously though, from a technical perspective, the piano is the best instrument for a blind person. It really for anyone wanting to start music.
Yeah.
You really should have some basic knowledge of piano, and that's why in music school, they make you take piano lab whether you want it or not, and they should, because it really is the most easy instrument to understand. The entire spectrum of tones is laid out before you in a very logical way on the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is, it's the ultimate instrument if you're playing, if you're blind and you're playing by touch, it really works well. The reason I never really progressed was that I started off playing classical guitar, and I all the techniques that I have, I've since turned my powers to evil and played rock and jazz and blues and stuff like that. But I have fingernails on my right hand for playing classical guitar, and I just got so used to it as that being kind of how I played fingerstyle stuff. And I play with a pick as well, but when I'm playing fingerstyle acoustic type music, I'm so used to having those nails there that I would just feel uncomfortable without them. So I can't get proper form on my right hand on the piano.
Mm-hmm.
Because of the nails. If I did, it'd break my nails off. And so I just kind of got where just never had good form on the piano, and so I just kind of gave up on that because I only have so much time in the day. But yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be equated with Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles or Ronnie Millsap or any of those incredible blind piano players. But it is certainly not a correct. The only real blind guitar player that's famous is Jeff Healey, so you just don't see as many blind guitar players. I do tend to be piano players. There's one time that we played a show, and opening for us at a venue was a band called Blind Shadow, and we didn't really think anything about the name because bands have all kind of kooky names and stuff. And it turned out the drummer was blind.
Oh, wow.
And and he had concrete blocks behind his cymbal stands because sometimes he'd miss and kind of knock the stands. Mm-hmm. And so he had these concrete blocks holding up his cymbals. Yeah. So I I'm not going to say I played drums a little bit and minored in percussion in college when I was in music school. So I won't say I've never missed a cymbal, but I've never swung at it so hard that I knocked the stand over. So he was putting down some serious power.
Yeah, absolutely. That's, I mean, unless the stand's like super cheap or something or
Yeah,
broke, yeah, you got to be swinging really
yeah,
hard.
yeah. I mean, he was putting down some power.
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess.
I was like, wow, that's something. But that's the only blind drummer. No, he was actually really good. I mean, he sounded great.
Yeah,
But it was just hilarious that he was just sort of swinging for the fences.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so you might have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but at what age did you lose your vision?
Oh well, as a basically I was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was 18 months old,
Okay.
and by the time I was two, they had removed it. But we don't. I honestly don't remember seeing. But if I did, it was never normal.
Okay.
So but the brain tumor grew so fast that it was literally crushing the wiring inside my brain,
Mm.
like the optic nerves and stuff. So it was growing so fast and had so much pressure that it was destroying, parts of my endocrine, well, my entire endocrine system actually.
Yeah.
Destroyed all of that and my vision and my sense of smell, some other stuff.
Yeah.
So that was 2 years old, basically.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
I've been doing it a long time. I'm in my 40s now, and I'm what I call a pro. I'm really comfortable with it, and have been this way for a long time. I try to help as much as I can people who really lose their sight because I think that's much more challenging. I'm not saying that being blind is easy at any time, but to have sight and then not to have it is a bigger shock to the system. Whereas I've always been this way, as long as I can remember. So in some respects, while it's challenging, in some respects, I don't like, it's frustrating that sometimes I can't just hop in the car at 4 in the morning and drive wherever I want to go,
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? But it's not the same thing. I don't really miss seeing, right? Because I never saw, so it's not as bad as having sight for a while and losing it as you get older or whatever.
Yeah. I completely understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, my dad had a brain tumor.
Mm.
But he got it when he was, see, we were still living in Linwood, so he was probably in his late 40s at that point.
Yeah. That's got to
Um,
be way worse.
yeah, well, but he lost his hearing. Now it
Mm.
was the tumor was connected to his facial nerve,
Mm-hmm.
and so he lost partial use of one side of his face.
Ooh,
That might have been more medical malpractice than anything, but
sure.
there's no way we can really prove one way or the other. But
Hard
he
to know.
lost
Yeah.
95% of his hearing on his right side.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's rough
um,
stuff.
yeah, it really is. But
And
it,
it's a thing about, I mean, the amazing thing to me is that the human body and the human will and spirit is so powerful that you can learn to live with just about anything. But and that's incredible. But it is an adjustment.
mm,
And as a latent issue to the brain tumor, I have lost two of my joints. So I've got a metal hip and a metal shoulder, and it wasn't a thrill a minute. I can tell you,
mm,
the shoulder surgery. The hip surgery was tough, but the shoulder surgery was really tough. But I was like, man, you know, I need this arm. I got to be able to play. I got to be able to work all the controls on my board, and I
mm,
need this arm's got to work. And so it's a tough adjustment, but it's not always easy, and I think it's okay to say that. I think it's fine to say, oh, this is frustrating and this is annoying. But I don't want to live in that space, so I try to live in the space of ability and the space of positive attitude as much as is reasonable. You don't want to be happy all the time.
yeah,
If you were like that, something would be wrong with you. I mean,
yeah,
yeah, that would be some sort of severe neurological disorder because being happy all the time is not rational or reasonable. But by and large, try to stay in that place of grace. But it can be challenging. But it does, like I say, it worries me. The people that I really feel for, and I certainly empathize with anyone who goes through any kind of struggle, physical, financial, whatever it is. But I do later in life when you've been living your whole life for 40 years a certain way, and then all of a sudden everything's different. That is tricky.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So who are some of your musical influences?
Oh man, I just love music so much. There's a million, but if I had to start at the beginning, I'd say the Beatles are number one. I start with the Beatles. And I love what I'm doing right now, and this is kind of a tip for anyone else that's an artist out there. Um, I I just love to play, and I just write what I write. And some people would tell you, well, you need to be a specific genre, and you need to be pigeonholed into that genre, and that kind of thing. And it is true that from a marketing perspective, having a very defined genre is helpful in that it helps you to market the music, and it helps you to reach figure out how to reach the fans you need to reach. But it can be kind of boring. And so I just, broadly speaking, I've got a jazz album that made it to number 9 on the top 40 jazz charts with CMJ. And I've got, blues albums and rock albums and different. So I just sort of play whatever I play. And usually if you like one, you'll like the other. I don't mix the jazz with the rock stuff or the really. But everything I do has a bit of fusion to it, so I'm eclectic in nature. But what I've started doing is I've started sort of branding myself very broadly and branding each album very specifically. So currently, the kind of music that we're doing is what I like to call progressive Americana. It's a pretty broad umbrella. It has little blues, little country, little rock, and it has some funky jazz influences and stuff like that. So, from that perspective, kind of the stuff that I'm doing the last handful of years, I really love people like Joe Bonamassa, and I think that's real good blues rock. John Mayer's got some real good blues rock. So I love those guys, but I also, think about BB King, and then some of the southern, being from Macon, some of the southern roots like the Allman Brothers, certainly a huge influence on me, and some of those guys. So a vast array of of course I love '80s pop. I mean, I like Tasha Goo Goo and George Michael, and just I think one of the greatest singers of all time. And then I like I like opera. So I'm influenced by so many things, but like I said, at the core, I'd say the two that really have shaped me in ways that are indelible would have to be well, actually the three really would have to be Hendrix. You can't be a guitar player not like Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And the Beatles and the Smiths. So I think those are I love the Smiths because they have the most dire melodramatic lyrics of all time put next to some pretty happy sounding music. But I like that juxtaposition. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
So irony is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so how have things been going during the pandemic? We talked a little bit briefly before we jumped on the stream.
Yeah.
How are you kind of occupying your time during this pandemic?
Well, a couple things. I've just sort of COVID-proofed my studio so I can get that running again. I bought 2 pair of Genelec monitors, which if you're not a big, if you don't know a lot about audio, the Genelecs are at the top of their class. So these monitors, they're not cheap, but the Genelec monitors are pretty amazing. I got the 8341s, and I got 2 pair of those, one for my control room and one for my main tracking room, so that we can maintain social distancing while we're doing critical listening. And then I've been setting up touchless hand sanitizer stations all throughout the studio, getting masks and gloves and face shields and thermometers and all these things that we need. So I've been doing that, just trying to figure out a safe way to reopen so everybody feels comfortable. And then I've been using the time to lose weight. I've lost 63 pounds, and my wife's lost like 50. And so we've been trying to get healthier, do a little bit of exercise. So that's been good. I have been so busy in the music business. Sometimes you'll have 16-hour days, which is really, you shouldn't be doing that, but it just works out that way.
Yep.
And oftentimes, because I'm having to work the sessions and run the sessions, and I also can't drive for myself, I just have to eat a cheeseburger and keep working, or whatever somebody else is getting. Hey, can I just get a sandwich when you get a sandwich, whatever. So I wasn't able to make really healthy choices, but we've gotten into a great routine of making healthy choices. and that sort of thing. And then starting in March of this year, I came up with I had a song that I wrote called One Song at a Time. And it was about changing the world through music. And I had sort of had this philosophy that I'm happy to make a positive difference one person at a time and one song at a time. And so I had this song, One Song at a Time, and I thought, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do a one song at a time campaign. So what I did was I decided to release a new song every month.
Oh, wow.
And most of them were songs I already had in the can that I had recorded and finished, but hadn't fully found a home for yet. So I hadn't found the right album to put them out on or something like that. Or in some cases, they were songs that I had released physically but hadn't released digitally yet. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I've been doing that, and it's been a lot of fun, and I've had some great response. We had one of the songs, I'm trying to remember, I think it was the song I wrote called Born to Be Your Toy, peaked at around 60,000 Spotify streams in about 6 weeks. It's not bad.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, just a couple things like that. And I'm continuing to do that through the end of this year, just to finish it out. So that's kind of happened. Yeah, I've been doing some more songwriting. And I've been doing a lot of ghostwriting on some different websites. There's a website called Gig Merge for musicians. Mm-hmm. And I've been writing a lot of music business articles on that about synchronization and different kinds of revenue streams and stuff like that. So I've been having a lot of fun.
Nice. That's awesome. So how many of the singles have you released through the One Song at a Time campaign?
Let's see. Well, I started through March, and we're going to go through the end of the year. So April, May, June, July, August. 9. And so that's 6, and then September will be the 7th track. Okay. And I'm pretty pumped about this one because it comes out each month. The song comes out on the 29th. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is the 29th of May is my birthday, and then September 29th is what we call my Alive Day. That's the day that I beat the odds of that brain tumor because I wasn't supposed to survive. And if I had survived, they said, you need to be prepared that your son's not going to walk or talk. But I can do all those things. And so the 29th is sort of an important date for me. So at the 29th of every month, the song comes out. And this month, I'm really excited about it because this particular track features 2 dear friends of mine, Charlie Hoskins from a band called The Popes. He's a UK artist who passed away sadly in 2017. But he's on there and is my co-writer in several of these songs. And then my dear friend Randall Bramlett, who played with Traffic and Steve Winwood, Grant Alden, Sea Level, a lot of wonderful bands. He's on there playing some B3 organ. And so I love this song. I really think the song's called You Know My Name. And I think it's one of the best things I've ever done. And it's got a wonderful, some of my guys that play in my band, my trumpet player, Tom Harling, and sax player, Brian Vogel, play some pretty mean saxophone. There's a great sort of Memphis horn section thing going on in the song. And then it also has my friend Adam Wolf on drums. So it's a really good track. I'm really excited about it. And this September 29th, shameless plug, is the 3rd annual Joey Stuckey Alive Day Music Festival. We've done it 2 years, 2017, 2018, 2019. I couldn't do it because I was having shoulder replacement surgery, and then I was also on tour like a nut and just had no time. Yeah. But we're doing it again this year, and you can watch it. It's a free stream from 6 to 9 p.m. on Facebook. We're doing it through Facebook Live, and we've got bands from Nashville, LA, of course, Macon, Georgia, Opelika, Alabama. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Nice. Is this the Kendra and the Bunnies?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
We do a lot of work with Kendra. We love her around here. So.
Oh, she is just incredible.
Yeah.
And has, the thing about it is, not only do I, when I invite people to participate in a live day, partly it's their musical talent, but a lot of it is their personal presence and their spirit.
Yep.
And she is absolutely, she's like, I guess the best way to call it, she's an artist's artist. You know what I mean? She really is an artist and has that vibe and just has such a sweet presence. I love it. And she is the first person I asked when I decided I was going to do it. this year, and due to COVID, I was going to do it virtual. She's the first person I asked, actually.
That's awesome.
She's awesome.
We actually had her on the podcast about 2 months ago, and then we had her on we do every Sunday night, we do a radio live stream, like a radio style live stream. So it's like imagine just like an old school radio show where it's people are just playing music,
That's awesome.
Yeah, normal. And she was our featured artist. I want to say it was 2 weeks ago at this point.
Well, I'd always heard her play guitar, but she just broke out the ukulele, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds even better. I love it.
Yeah.
I don't know if she played that for you guys, but you need it next time you have her on, so you play that ukulele.
Yeah, I got you. I do have a very serious question for you, though. This may be a make it or break it thing for this interview.
Got it.
Are you a Cubs fan?
I do like baseball, and I just recently tweeted, congratulations to the no-hitter.
That's what struck it. I just saw it on your website.
Yeah. Well, I want to explain my baseball fan. I am a Cubs fan, but here's the deal. Overall, over everything, I'm a Braves fan.
Okay.
That's first.
Yeah.
And then I have a dream of being at a game, experiencing a game in every major league park in North America. That is my bucket list goal.
Yep.
And while I've been on tour over the last 3 or 4 years, I have worked whenever I could to get in a baseball game in that city. So I have seen both the Cubs and the White Sox, the Diamondbacks, of course, the Braves many, many, many times. And then also the Dodgers and the Detroit Tigers, and also the San Francisco Giants.
And the Red Sox.
Nice.
So I'm making my way through. So when my wife and I watch baseball, because we love baseball and watch it, even when there's no season, I bought games digitally, and we watch them over and over and over again. And she's the one that taught me to love baseball.
Nice.
And so our sort of convoluted way that we root for baseball teams is Braves first over everything, and then if we've seen them play, we'll root for them over somebody else. So if it's the Cubs versus the Cardinals, I'll root for the Cubs. And then, of course, if we've seen both teams play, we root for whoever's home park that played the game.
I got you. I just saw
that. You're a Cubs fan.
I'm a White Sox fan.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. It's funny. I was born on the north side, but I grew up on the south side. I was born while my mom was watching a Cubs game, but I ended up becoming a Sox fan.
Well, I'll tell you something. I enjoy both teams, but I'll tell you this. The better park, the park I had the better experience in was the White Sox park. And I really enjoyed that game just from the accessibility standpoint of being able to access things.
Yep. It
was really great.
I was going to say that because I have cerebral palsy, actually. So mobility and being handicap accessible is very important for me, as just accessibility in general.
Yeah.
And the first time I went to Wrigley Field, I was sitting up in the nosebleeds because that's all we could afford at the time.
Sure.
And I damn near fell out of the nosebleeds because.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. Yeah, I mean, the White Sox park is awesome.
Yeah.
And the experience I had there was fantastic. I actually tweeted that the other day. I can't remember what it was. I think somebody did a grand slam or something. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, love your park. It was so great.
Yeah. There's a lot of White Sox hitting grand slams this year. So.
Yeah, man. They've been cooking.
Yeah. I'm excited. It just sucks because I'm in Texas and I only get what I can. My dad hooked up a Sling TV air to my grandma's cable box.
Yeah.
And so I only get what comes over the air, which unfortunately for the White Sox is only one game every other week.
Ooh, rough.
So
have you tried the MLB streaming app?
I have.
Okay.
I just can't always afford it.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But right now, as the good news is, if they make it to, if they were making playoffs something like that,
Yeah.
The good news is it gets cheaper the closer to the end of the season. So that's
Yeah.
always good.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's
So,
like $20, I think.
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
I
bad.
guess that's right. Cause there's only like 14 games left.
I know, it's so weird.
Yeah.
I'm
And,
just impressed at how well they've done with all the different challenges. That's amazing.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But no, I just saw the tweet you made about the perfect game, or the not perfect game, the no hitter that
Yeah.
Alec Mills pitched yesterday. Or was it yesterday or
Yeah, it was yesterday.
yeah? And I was just like, oh no, I'm talking to a Cubs fan.
You liked me so well until that moment.
No, actually, I really don't hate Cubs fans. It's just more of those Cubs fan that rub it in your face every
Oh,
chance
yeah.
that. So,
Well, I can't see him doing that, so I just ignore him.
yeah, I got you. Oh, so you've got your next single coming up the end of the month,
That's right.
correct? The 29th.
29th. Yep.
What's kind of going through your, like, obviously you've been doing this for the last several months, so this isn't like anything new that you're experiencing, but what usually goes into the preparation of releasing a new single every month?
Well, some of them, I definitely work hard through social media and through online radio to get Spotify streams. The fact of the matter is, whether I like it or not, as a music business person, I'm not a big fan of streaming. And the reason is that the royalty rate is so ridiculously low
Yep.
that it's hard as an artist, at least in the short term, it's hard as an artist to make a reasonable living from streaming. Now, if you've been in the business, 40 years and you got 30 albums and they all hit number one, then potentially you can have decent revenue from streaming because the sort of flip side of streaming is if I sell you a CD for $10 and you listen to that CD for 40 years, then I've made $10 off it and I don't get paid again. But in the streaming model, you get paid every time the song gets played, but the royalty percentage is 0.2 of a penny.
Yeah,
and you can't live on that. So what I do to prepare is work hard to make sure it's visible on the streaming platforms. Digital downloads are down for the first time. It started in 2019, but they're significantly down for the first time since they were invented. And so really streaming sales are what's driving the nominal growth that we're having in the music business at the moment. But again, people like Spotify are making money, but I'm not really making money. But I do that, and then I of course promote it on social media. I promote it through my email newsletter and that sort of thing. And that's kind of I haven't been pushing. I mean, I've been working hard, but I haven't been pushing super hard. But this I have been leading up to this song, so I'm proud of all the songs that I've released. And it's funny how you have a song that you love and think is the greatest thing you've ever done, and your audience may love it like you do, or they may respond more mildly to it. You think, oh, this should have been a hit, why wasn't it a hit, whatever. But I've been putting out these songs and getting some good, like I said, 60,000 streams over 6 weeks is pretty decent for one of the songs. But I have been really leading up to the song "You Know My Name" coming out at the end of this month, and we're actually going to do a terrestrial radio campaign for that single. And traditionally, with the kind of market that I hit, which is what's called non-commercial radio, so AAA, Americana, college radio, public radio, those target audiences usually like a physical product. And there's about 350 stations throughout North America, and well, really, that's about 350 in America. And then there's another good 150, 200 in Canada, but I don't really hit that market very hard. So I mostly focus on America right now. But at any rate, this with COVID and the way things are changing, over the last 9 months or so, digital singles have gotten kind of the love they deserve with my target audience. So we actually are rolling out a radio campaign for this single because we think it's so good. And the guy that does my radio promotion, literally said to me, "This is the best thing you've sent me. I love it." And so everybody that hears the track, really feels that it's a pinnacle song. That it's a great record. It's got a lot of intensity and energy from start to finish, and the vocals are really wailing, and it feels good. It's a good feeling song, and it's a lot of fun. And so I think people will really enjoy it. It's sort of mid tempo blues, and but it sizzles. I mean, it's got some real spirit to it that I'm very pleased with, because that's whenever you're making a record, you have two goals. You have sonic goals, and you have emotional goals.
Yep.
So you want it to sound good, but you also want to communicate emotion. And that's sometimes those are hard to get both. So it's a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it. And then next year things settle down. I've got several good friends that are Grammy-winning producers and that are really good folks that we've been wanting to make music together for a while, and hopefully I'll be able to make time for that happen next year.
Nice, awesome. So for this upcoming single that's releasing on the 29th, you'd mentioned previously that some of these songs are songs that you've had sitting in the bag and had. How long ago had you? How long has this song been kind of?
Well, that's interesting, because I wrote it between 2016 and 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I say I wrote it. I co-wrote it with a friend, Charlie Hoskins, mentioned earlier. And so I wrote it back then. I had met Charlie when I was on tour in the UK in 2015. And he's one of those people that you meet and just become instant friends with. And he walked up to me at the pub where I was playing, and he said, "Hey man, my name is Charlie Hoskins, and my superpower is I can sing like a girl." And I knew I liked this guy immediately, and we bonded, and we said, "Man, I'd love to. We ought to do some music together." And we, he took my wife and I out for our last night in London, and with his wife, who's lovely and gracious, and so we just had a wonderful connection. And it's a weird story, because I wasn't supposed to meet him. A friend of mine asked a friend of his to come out and see me play. And then that friend couldn't make it, so they asked their cousin, who's Charlie, to come out and see me play in their stead. And that's how we met. It's a crazy way, but I think people are supposed to come into your life for a reason. And so it's an honor for me to keep Charlie's music alive. So a lot of the songs I've released have been the songs that Charlie and I did together under the name Joey Stuckey and the Shadow Bandits.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our side project. And so the song Born to Be Your Toy, another song Cold Heart, and even the One Song at a Time song, those were all co-written with Charlie. And I'd recorded them and finished them, but we had a handful of songs left to finish when he died, and I never got a chance to do that. And so I was trying to think, we were going to put out an album, and I was trying to figure out, well, when should I release these? How do I release them? What do I want to do? And I never came up with a really good answer. And then when COVID hit and everything was just so crazy, I thought, well, this is a good time to give these songs some love. And so I started releasing them then. And then the other songs that I put out have been from my 2019 record, In the Shadow of the Sun. They were cover songs that we released physically but did not release digitally. And I've now released, like Domino by Van Morrison was one. But they don't sound anything like Van Morrison. They have our stamp on it.
They have your
just yeah. And so, but the interesting thing was, with Charlie, I told Charlie, I said, Charlie, this song, You Know My Name. What he would do is he would send me, because he had a little home studio in London, and so he would send me a guitar track, a bass track, and a drum track. He would record those three instruments, and then he'd send it to me and say, "Hey, write the lyrics and the melody for this song." So I'd write the lyrics and the melody, and then I'd send it back to him, and then he would add. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He'd add some cello or some mandolin or some banjo or just some other stuff that he liked, and then he would usually, because he said, "You mind if I mix these?" Usually he would mix them, and then I would handle the mastering. So we had a kind of a pipeline going, a system going, And that's how we collaborated. But I told Charlie when I came across this, my name track, I said, look, I want to do this song on my album. I want to do it. I don't want it to be a Shadow Bandits song. I want it to be on my album because it's so bluesy. It just really fits what I'm doing right now. And the Shadow Bandits stuff is a little different, and it's a little bit different than what this other stuff. So I want to do that. He said, oh, yeah, no problem. So, and then he had originally tracked drums, but I took his drums off and brought in one of my session drummers. Mm-hmm. And then he had put some cellos down, but I took those off and added horns instead because that fits what I'm doing a little better. And then he doesn't play lead guitar, so I do the rhythm part, and that's an additional. And I would always play all the lead guitar. And then he's an amazing backup vocalist. I mean, truly just amazing. But I would always do all the lead vocals. But he didn't do any backup vocals for this song. But yeah, so we create. But the interesting part is that I tracked all of the additional parts with Randall Bramlett and horns and all that kind of stuff. I tracked those in 2018, 2019, just, on the back burner when I had time to fool with it. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't mix it until this year during COVID. Wow. So I just mixed and mastered it. Okay. Like maybe,
so it's been a work in process in progress.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been. And it's been something I've been just kind of fooling with on the back burner for a while, but I knew it could be special, and I just wanted to give it the time and attention that it needed. And I just would kind of, I would do something to it, let it sit for a while, and think about it, and say, does it need anything else? Am I happy? Is this all it needs? And it just, I really, it's one of those times where most of the time as an artist, you get 90% of what you want, but maybe that 10% moves you. And it's not a mistake. It just came out differently than you anticipated or differently than you planned. And like I said, most of the time it's not like it's wrong, it's just different. But this one really turned out exactly how I had envisioned from start to finish. And it's kind of a rare thing to happen.
Yeah, I got you. And so all the songs that you've released so far during COVID are not necessarily all of them are work that way. Are some of them like they've already been recorded, mixed, mastered, and you just
most of them were already in the can and just hadn't been released yet. Okay. Because like I said with the Shadow Bandit stuff, I just hadn't found a good way to promote an album with it. Mm-hmm. And Charlie told me that he didn't want a tour behind it, in person. So we would release the music, but if I wanted to play it live with my band or whatever, that's what I'd do. Okay. So I had a bunch of those songs sitting around when he passed away. There was, I think, 3 songs we hadn't finished, and I've sort of made the decision to finish those 3 songs when I have time, even though I don't have access to the multi-tracks anymore because they're with his computer in London, and I wouldn't be able to tell his family how to find it. It'd be impossible to find them. Yeah. So I don't want to bother them. So I'm just going to take the rough mixes that I wrote the song to, and I'm going to add my vocals here and just mix those and put them out as a passion project, as a love project.
Yeah.
And eventually release an album that way. But for right now, they're available under Joey. If you search Joey Stuckey, they'll come up. But you can find them iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you want to go. But they were all pretty much in the can. Just hadn't found a home for them yet. And I thought, well, now's a good time to do new music. But I have written a lot of new music during COVID. Yeah. But I have not recorded any of it for distribution or anything like that. I just been
primarily doing your writing and
I've been doing I've done a ton of writing. I write probably a couple songs a week.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I've always written a lot, but a lot of times didn't have time.
Yeah.
What's really sick,
Yeah. When you do, given that you write so much, what's kind of your selection process when you do decide to go into the studio? Like, how do you decide what you're gonna record?
I love this question. So because back in the 50s and things like that, the market was single driven. So a lot of people would release singles, and then eventually they do albums, stuff like that. But like the Beatles' "Love Me Do" it was a big hit, but that was only ever a single.
Yeah.
It was only then later, after the Beatles had been broken up for quite some time, released in a compilation. But so the singles were really what drove the market, and we had kind of, with digital technology, we've kind of gotten back to the a la carte approach. Like, I love this one song by Katy Perry, but I don't really like anything else she's done, so I'll buy this one song.
Yep.
You can really just pick and choose what you want to hear and what you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
But I still love albums. I still like, or EPs. I'm also hip to EPs. I think anywhere from 4 to 8 songs is a good EP. Anywhere from 8 to 12 songs is a good album. And so, I guess it kind of depends on what you're going for. But I kind of, when it's time to make a new record, the way that I normally do it is I think about a song that I'm really excited about, that I really feel pleased with, that I feel like did everything I wanted it to do. It came out, I was able to, I had an idea that I wanted to communicate, and the song did it. I'm excited about the melody. I'm excited about the rhythm. I'm also excited about the way I can perform it. Is it something that I can really show off my skills on? Things like that. And so once I have, a song that I'm really excited about, I then sort of plan the album around that song. And I think, well, what else complements this song, both in subject matter, in temperament, in style, in genre? That's usually how I do it. To these songs, I think about what I want to hear. If I was playing a gig, would I put these songs together? If I was sitting down listening to an album, it makes sense for these songs to be in the same place. So at earlier years, I always have done that. I've always sequenced the record, but in my earlier years, I was really less concerned. I was more concerned with art and less with making a living. And I'm still as much concerned with the art as I ever have been, but I'm also concerned with making a living. Yeah. And so I'm a little bit more focused now than I used to be, because I used to write what I write. And if it's good, I'm throwing it on the record and hell. But that doesn't work as well. So, but that's kind of how I choose it. But I will say, that being said, the 2019 album, The Shadow of the Sun, was a real fluke. It was not ever intended to be a record. I was on tour with the band. I have several different incarnations of my band. I've got a 7-piece band. I've got a 5-piece. But I found that the market really supports trios real well, from a logistical standpoint, from a budget standpoint of hotels and gas and food and all this stuff.
And the variety of places you can play, because with a trio, you could play the smaller,
anywhere,
intimate places, or you could even fill up a bigger stage. So
absolutely,
yeah, I completely get.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And the thing is, with a 7-piece band, it's hard to find a venue that can hold that, that's going to pay you enough to bring all those guys, out on the road. So anyway, but we were on tour in Memphis, and we had a day off. And I said, hey man, why don't we go and visit Sun's studio and take the tour? I said, but wouldn't it be cool to record them? Because they run it as a studio for 3 hours a day. From 7 to 10, you can buy studio time. And to be honest and fair, it's the equipment is from the 60s, and it's very cool to record all that stuff.
It's all analog.
Well, it's all analog in the sense that they're still using the mics and the amps from the 60s, but they do record the Pro Tools.
Okay.
But what's special about that room are the spirits that live there. And this is where Johnny Cash, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, all these guys, Roy Orbison, made some of their early Sentinel albums. And so they have the drum set that U2 left them when U2 stopped on their Rattle and Hum tour to record. at Sun Studio, they get to the drum set. So you're using the drum set, that U2 used. You use the microphones that Elvis and those guys sang on. You're using the old amps, the old Fender amps and the amp head amps. And it's just, and everybody's in one room, and there's a lot of bleed on the microphones. So there's no fixing it later or punching in and fixing it. You can't do any of that. You have to get it right the first time. So it was really old school recording, and I thought this would be a lot of fun. And I thought, let me just capture the sound of the trio as we are right now on tour. This will be a fun audio postcard.
Yeah.
And if it turns out okay, that's great. Or if it doesn't, that's fine. But basically, it was a live album. We were in a studio, just doing a live album. And my dad was on the road with us, and so was my wife at this particular juncture. And I had them both come in and play on a song. Just not that I'm ever going to release it, but we played Cheating Heart, Hank Williams, because my dad knows that. And my dad was 80 at the time. And I thought, man, this is just how cool that for a father and son to play at Sun Studio together. Yeah. So, anyways, then we got the files home, and I listened to it, and I thought, this is pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so we started it just a raw, so drums, lead vocals, bass, and rhythm guitar. We did there. And I overdubbed, we had a little bit of time. I overdubbed one or two guitar solos there, but did most of my guitar solos back in my place. Then I added my buddy Randall Bremen on a song, and then I added Al Shea, who's the trumpet player for Tower of Power and was on the late night show with David Letterman's band for 17 years. He's a trumpet player I met in New York, a dear friend. And I got him to put some mean horns on a song. And then we brought in a middle school here in town and had a 30-voice middle school choir sing on one of the songs. So I did the extra production and stuff here. Mm-hmm. And then we put out that record, but it was never intended to be a record. So the song choice I had were basically older songs of mine. I had one of my songs that had never been recorded. And it's the most popular song we have live, but I never recorded it. And I was like, man, why haven't I recorded the song? And then I realized I know why, because it wasn't the right time. And all of a sudden, this was the right time. Yeah. And then 2 days or 3 days before we recorded at Sun Studio, I wrote how many new songs? 2 new songs, I think. 2 new. Yeah, I wrote 2 new songs, and we recorded those. And then we played songs of mine from our set, and that was it. We got 9 songs in 3 hours, and that was it. So that collection was not as carefully thought out as some. Yeah. It was just whatever it was like stuff that I thought we did really well, and that we enjoyed playing in our set, stuff that audience responded to real well. But then I thought, boy, it's stupid to go here and record just all songs that either you already done or cover songs. That's kind of dumb. So I wrote 2 new songs, and they turned out really well. One of them is called "You're So Wrong," which is a great little sort of fuzzy AM radio sounding pop song. Kind of sounds like I don't know, kind of like Paul Westerberg or something like that. Kind of has that Memphis sound to it. And then another brand new one that I did was just more on the blues side, and it's called "Troubles Come in Threes." So it's just fun stuff. And then we recorded one song that was an old song of mine that I thought the band did really well, called "Still Me Singing Free." And then we tracked a song that Charlie and I had written and released already under the Shadow Band title called "Ain't It Good to Be in Love." And that song turned out so well. That's the one that had the children's choir and Al Shea's horns, and it turned out to be a real gem on the record. Then we did 3 cover songs. We did "Whip and Post" by the Allman Brothers, which is what we close our shows with. We did "Domino" by Van Morrison, and then we did a country song that we sort of bluesed up called "Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues." So it's a neat record.
Yeah, I can't get over the fact that you recorded 9 songs with the trio. You said in 3 hours.
That includes setup time.
Because all right, so one of the other things that we do on Live and Amplified is we do live recording sessions, so it's strictly live.
Yeah.
And the best that we've ever been able to do is a solo acoustic act, setup, breakdown, 10 songs in 2 hours.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what makes the difference
Yeah,
for
it's
us.
a trio. First of all, is the
Well,
huge difference.
And I am really ruthless about rehearsal.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that we just played it perfect. Now let's play it perfect 3 more times. It was like, so we are well rehearsed, and have all been doing it for a long time. But also, me, I'm a sound engineer too, so I was able to help facilitate, move things very quickly with the staff at Sun, and I have done live TV shows for a long time. So we used to do this is going to freak you out. With a 2-man crew, we would do 4 bands in 2 hours, and they did 2 songs each plus an interview each.
Wow.
But it all comes down to logistics.
Yeah.
So I have the studio. I before they ever come in, and you probably do this too.
Yeah.
But before they ever come in, I have an exact count of how many people, what instruments. I have my input list, all that kind of stuff. I go ahead and prep the studio ahead of time, so I get as much of it set up ahead of time as I can. And see, part of what saved us though was we were using all of their amps, so we had all of our stuff in our trailer.
Yeah.
But we decided just to go with the vibe of the studio, and I used their guitar amp, I used their bass amp, and we used their drum kit. So we didn't change out anything.
Nice.
We just went with what they had because they knew that stuff.
Yeah. We are back in January before the pandemic hit. We were up in Nashville.
Oh, cool.
And obviously before Nashville went to hell in a handbasket with their tornado that hit in March, and then the pandemic, and then everything else that's been going on. We were shooting a few episodes of a new series we were trying out called The Jam Session, which is
I love it.
Basically what you just described, except they played 7 songs and an interview.
Right.
So we like you, I'm very ruthless and very assertive as to how things are done.
Yeah, well, somebody's got to be in charge.
And I always tell a lot of the musicians, when we're in production mode, do not think that's how I am.
Right.
Throughout the entire thing, because we're literally there for a short amount of time and we're trying to get stuff done.
Exactly.
So we would do because we were in Nashville, we had the studio for 12 hours for 2 days.
Which studio was it?
Diamond Sound.
Oh,
it was like a practice facility, I guess is what it would be.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing, we had a couple of bands. We were originally scheduled to do 14 bands over the course of 2 days, or 14 acts, and anywhere between 5 and 7 songs a piece, plus an interview where
that's awesome.
Appropriate. But it was because we were able to stay in one place and not have to tear down every time.
Exactly.
And we kept the big bands to a minimum because they'd have to move all their stuff in, and made it really hard.
Well, when I plan a production like that, I make them use a community drum kit.
Yeah.
And they can trade out their cymbals and their kick pedal and their snare if they want, but everything else has to stay.
Yeah.
And you can do that in 5 minutes. And then I make them use my microphones. I make them use my bass amp, but they can bring their pedal boards, and then they can bring their guitar.
Yep.
And then that's pretty straight ahead once you do that. And like you say, because you're set up in a certain way, and you can stay in that location, you don't have to break down, set up. You can move them through very fast, and it works really well. And I was doing a traditional, music show on the local NBC station here in town, and so the reason they got 2 songs in an interview is because your airtime's so short. But then later I did a web show called Behind the Shadow, and my studio is called Shadow Sound Studio. So, and it was really cool because we were able to take as much time as we wanted.
Mhm.
I kept a similar format, just maybe interviews longer, but it was nice to not have to be on the clock.
Yeah,
Because the camera guys, I had the camera guys from the TV station. I did the audio, and they did
yeah,
the video. And they only had 2 hours, and I could have them a week. So
yeah.
you know,
That's yeah. The original idea for it was to pitch it to either make it a web series or a TV series, and then we ended up making it a podcast actually.
oh, there you go. So it
So
evolves.
yeah, it
That's
was
great.
we went and did all this video work and it ended up being a podcast, but it is what it is. Um, so no, that's actually where my heart is video production, and then audio is just something that I've kind of picked up here and there. I've started to mix, but compared to my audio engineer, my mix sounds terrible. Like I went back and like during this quarantine, I've been forced to kind of do a lot of my like I can record just fine. I can get you a really decent recording. I
Sure.
just can't mix it worth a damn.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I went back and listened to some of the mixes I did early on, and I was like, "Hey Jeff, I'm gonna send you a bunch of audio. I need you to mix it for me because I can't release any of this."
Yeah.
Because it's like he would send me a song, and it's like, dude, how'd you get the vocals so full? How did you do that? And he's like, well, I can't really tell you. I have to kind of show you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna just send you a bunch of music. You make it sound a lot better than I did. So, you know,
Well, there are guys that just mix, that are
yeah,
just mixers, because it is a weird process.
yeah,
And I think I teach music technology at two universities in town. And the hardest part is people understand frequency and how
yeah,
they can mask each other. So
yeah,
that's the tricky part.
yeah,
Because and then you have to make sure that you use the right mic for the right job and that sort of
yeah,
thing. But yeah, I mean these guys are like Dave Pensado and some of those guys that basically just mix. Those guys are at a whole different level. They're just something special.
yeah. But it's so funny, like the amount of audio that I do know. I work for a TV station, so like when you're bringing up the TV aspect of things, I was like, oh yeah,
Oh
that kind
yeah,
of hits home.
yeah, yeah.
And so like I do a lot of the promotions and commercial production, and the although my audio knowledge is very limited, when I do get to break it out, I look like a superhero because there's always that time where we're shooting outside and a plane goes flying overhead, or there's a little bit of a wind gust or a low frequency or or like a hiss in the mic or
Oh
something,
yeah.
and I can go in and I can pull because I'll pull up the spectral frequency display and I'll see right where it's at and I'll do my best to pull it right out. And everybody's like, "How did you do that?" I'm like,
It's a secret.
"It's magic."
Exactly. Just
But
believe in the awesome.
yeah, but usually my go-to is the spectral frequency display, and that's usually where my talents are.
Well, do you use like RX-7 or something like that?
As far are you
Like
are you?
the isotope plugin, because they have some
Oh no,
amazing spectral control.
I just use straight audition, and
Okay,
yeah, yeah. I don't use any plugins or anything. I just kind of go in and yeah. So
that's what I do. I mean, I use a lot. I gotta say, those isotope plugins are just amazing. I can't believe the kind of restoration stuff you can do with that stuff. It's ridiculous. So good.
yeah,
And I keep wondering how can they keep getting better, and they just keep getting better.
yeah.
But the
That's
technology's changed a lot from when I got started. I'll tell you that.
oh yeah. I remember when I was going through school for film production. The very first class that I went to, they were still cutting film, like
Oh gosh,
35
yeah,
millimeter. Yeah.
yeah.
So, you know, and I remember a kid, my dad used to take like, one of the things that he studied going through high school was audio. Like, he was in a band all through high school, and his big claim to fame was that he has perfect pitch.
Oh,
So, but he wanted to do like radio and stuff. So I would, whenever when I was growing up, I'd be down in his office and he'd be playing tape to tape reels of his old radio show from like when he was in high school. So he
very
had
cool.
like a whole bunch of his old tapes and he'd just be playing them.
Yeah. Did you ever transfer those over and preserve them on like digital?
He never transferred them over or anything. So it's yeah, he would just he had the old player and he set it up one day and would play tape to tape.
That was so cool.
Yeah. So, or
I,
reel to
I,
reel, I guess it would be. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I started on tape as well, and I still love tape, but yeah, nobody wants to pay for it, so
Yeah.
it's just not a. I mean, because a good 2-inch analog tape machine, 24 tracks, can cost you anywhere from 30 to 50 grand.
Yeah.
Then you're gonna have a good $10,000 in maintenance every year, and the tape costs about $200 a reel. And
Mm-hmm.
if you run the reel fast enough at like 30 IPS, then the reel is going to last you about 15 minutes. So for an hour's worth of music, you've got $800 worth of tape.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
not practical.
that like even for like because in some of the DIY punk band scenes or like the punk scene, cassette tapes are making a comeback.
I saw that. I read about cassette coming back,
Yeah.
and I wonder what Steve Albini thinks. I mean, I don't know if he's for or against, but I I loved cassettes when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't want to go back to them. I don't want to. I don't
Well,
want to
because
go
the
back to
crazy
cassettes.
thing is, when every year in January we do a bluegrass festival down in the Keys. We're like the official media people.
Neat.
Um, and so one of the things I wanted to do this past year was we have a bunch of like cover songs, so obviously we can't sell them,
Right.
so we just have to kind of give them away. So one of the things I wanted to do was use a cassette tape like a business card.
Oh, that's a good idea.
So like on the tape, you would actually have like we'd make like a mixtape of all the cover songs that we've recorded over the years, but like the cover would be just live and amplified. And then on the backside, instead of like the song listings, it would just be whatever our information is.
That is actually a cool idea. I like
Except,
that.
except cassette tapes are insanely expensive.
Are they really?
Yeah, you're talking like $60 for 12 of them.
That is a lot.
And yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like if I knew I wasn't going to screw up the first half of them, like trying to actually make the mixtapes, because it's been a long time since I've made a mixtape like that.
Yeah. Well, my question is, who has the players anymore? That's the thing that I wonder about. Like, who can? I've still got 2 Tascam dual cassette decks in my studio, and every once in a while I'll do transfers for people.
Yeah.
But I just wonder how many consumers still have their tape decks.
Actually, funny story. So what actually spawned that idea was my dad had just bought a new boat, and on the in their little entertainment system that they had was a dual cassette tape player. Or it was just obviously played cassettes, but it did transfers as well. Like you could, yeah. And he asked me if I wanted it, and I was like, I'm sure I could find a use for it, and that kind of spawned the idea. But when I saw how expensive tapes were, I was like, yeah, I think I'm good. So I've got it sitting right next to me, and I'm like, I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm going to hold on to it for a while.
Oh yeah, well, listen, I never thought vinyl would come back, and it did, so I was wrong about that.
Oh yeah.
So
my mom is kicking herself on the vinyl thing because she had this huge collection of all the classics. She had like the White Album, just like all the really good stuff. And one day when we were in like grade school, she had a garage sale and some guy came and offered to buy her entire collection for a price. And she sold it because she was like, oh, vinyl's never coming back. I don't even have a player. So what am I going to do with all this? Like she had the spindle of 45s, and then she had a crate of 33s, right? Yeah.
Yeah, 33, 30.
And she sold them, and then now it's like, dang it, I should have held on to them. I'm like,
well, it's funny because I've never, as a blind guy, as a kid, vinyl was not. I mean, it's what everybody was buying, and I was doing it, trying to just trying to be a kid or whatever. And but the problem was not being able to see and trying to find the needle and put it on your favorite song. I bought the Michael Jackson Thriller record like 3 or 4 times because I scratched it up so bad trying to just play my favorite songs. So I just got sort of tired of that and went to cassettes, and then when CDs came out, went to CD. But for the first time in my life with this this record that I made at Sun Studio, I just felt like it would be wrong not to make vinyl. And so we did. The first time any of my recordings, we made vinyl copies. And we made about 200 of them. And while we were on tour, we sold about half of them. And still got maybe 75, something like that left. It was a lot of fun. And I actually went out and bought a turntable just because I had to approve the test pressing. So I was like, well, I better go get a turntable.
And luckily, right now you can get turntables just about anywhere. Right?
Oh, yeah.
They've made such a comeback that you can go get those little Victrola suitcase ones for.
Oh yeah. You get it's $100, and you get something pretty decent.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't want to keep you too much longer because I just realized what time it was. So what's kind of the plan moving forward as you kind of progress through the rest of the year? Obviously, you're doing the once a month single releases, but do you have any other kind of plans for the rest of the year?
Really, at the moment, my big plan is just getting my studio back up and running safely, and I've got my first sessions since March coming up this week. And people are starting to feel comfortable, booking, and because a lot of people weren't even, whether I've been open or not. A lot of people just weren't booking because nobody knew much about the virus, and nobody knew much about how to handle it. And now there are protocols and different things that we can do. So I'm focused on that. I'm focused on, looking at. I'm still doing, doing some podcasts with people like you and doing different things. But by and large, I'm going to focus on the one song a month. I've got my Christmas music that I'm promoting heavily during the Christmas season that I've written.
That was actually one thing I wanted to bring up as well. Thanks for the reminder.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
man.
You don't see on the independent level. You don't see a lot of Christmas music being released.
You don't, but here's the thing: there's the radio stations that play holiday music really are wanting it, and you don't have to be a big name to be put on their playlist. And so stations that play holiday music really are starving for it. So it only has about a 6-week viability, but it has a 6-week viability every year, and it doesn't matter what genre you play. There is a spot for you on Christmas holiday radio. And there's web radio stations do holiday music. There's terrestrial radio stations do holiday music. Sirius XM does holiday music. They actually have 4 or 5 different channels. They even have a channel for Hanukkah songs. So it's pretty amazing. So there is a market for it, and there's also a great market for synchronization with film and TV because like Hallmark and several channels like that do a whole lot of Christmas programming. So it's a really good market to get into. And last year, my agent said, "Do you do Christmas music?" I was like, "Well, no, but I can make some. Why do you? I have a studio at my disposal. Why?" And she said, "Well, I've got someone that is looking for Christmas songs for a couple of projects," and it was amazing. I had 3 or 4 other people reach out to me with the same question. "Hey, do you have any holiday songs? I've got some people looking for holiday songs." So I recorded 6 holiday tunes and a little holiday EP, and most of them were public domain songs. So I did "Oh Holy Night," and I did "Go Tell It on the Mountain," and "Jingle Bells," and then I wrote a song called "Santa That Plays Guitar," which is very silly, but it's about wanting Santa to come jam with you for Christmas.
Yeah,
and
that's
then I
awesome.
did. Yeah, it's a fun song. It has gotten a lot of support. And then I did two songs that were not public domain. I did a version of "Let It Snow" and a version of "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
Hmm.
And so people really enjoyed it and really liked it. And I had some people ask me about it. So the thing is, you can promote the same record for 1,000 years. It just never. It doesn't matter if it sounds dated. I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're still playing the 1950 recording of Bing Crosby singing "White Christmas." They're still
Hmm.
playing that early 1990s recording of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
Yep.
Yeah, they're still playing the 1960s or 70s recording of the Alvin and the Chipmunks song.
Yep. Yep.
It's really a lot of fun. So I'll be pimping the Christmas music pretty hard starting November,
Okay.
and then I'm just gonna enjoy um, saying goodbye to 2020. It's like I'm
Yeah.
just gonna. My wife and I had a joke the other day. If we were doing a Yelp review of 2020, we'd give it 0 stars. Would not recommend. So I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to moving into 2021, and I had a whole lot of things on my plate. They were very exciting. A studio expansion. Doing. I have a building we're going to renovate, spend about $1 million on, and I had to stop all that because everything just got so crazy with COVID. Nobody was doing installation. Nobody was doing anything. So I'm hoping to kind of ramp that back up, and by this time next year have that finished. But we'll see what happens. But just looking forward to getting past this year and hopefully to a better place.
Yeah, absolutely. Though it's all about how you position 2020. Yes, there's been a lot of bad things that's happened
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of things, but just like looking internally, like you've been able to turn it into a positive. Like you've been able to release singles every month since the pandemic hit. So
Exactly. So
it's definitely um you've adapted very well from what I've seen. So
yeah, that's the key. I mean,
yeah,
life is not always going to go the way you want it. I mean, I wish the universe obeyed my every whim, but it doesn't, and I have to learn to deal with it.
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
so it's just, but it is. Life is at the end. Life is what you make it, and we've done a lot of things. I've had a chance to read some books I've been meaning to read that I hadn't had time to read. I've found a couple new TV shows I like. Even though I'm missing half the fun because it's very visual comedy. I'm a big fan of Apple and Onion. I don't know if you've seen this,
Yeah,
but I've become a huge fan of Apple and Onion, and because it's just so silly and dumb, I love it. And sometimes you need something like that to counterpoint, to
yeah,
all the serious stuff going on.
yeah, absolutely.
So that's my new
But,
SpongeBob.
yeah. Have you jumped into any of the there's a lot of like podcasts that are taking more of a old school narrative form.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're taking like basically like back in the day where it would be like a TV show except only audio. Like so it'd be you,
You need
you
something
know
so kind of like a drama.
yeah.
Yeah, I have not. I have heard the few things. There's a company out there called Graphic Audio that makes really amazing, um, basically audio dramas
Hmm.
that I love. Of course, the BBC has been doing it that way for a million years,
Yeah.
and they still do a great job. In
Yeah.
fact, as a little present to myself, I just bought a 12 disc set of dramatized Sherlock Holmes stories.
Oh nice.
Um, oh, I love it. It's fantastic. And the latest book by Neil Gaiman, Sandman, is if you get the audio version, it is a full cast dramatization with music and sound effects,
Oh
and
wow.
it's fantastic.
Nice.
But also, like, I mean, I've checked out Night Vale and some things like that. But I'm yeah, and I used to do. There was a oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name of the company now. Dark Matters, maybe Dark.
Okay.
I can't think. Anyway, Dark something,
Yeah.
and they did audio dramas. And I used to do all their music cues, or if not all of them, a good number of their music cues, just for fun.
Yeah.
And I cannot think of the name of them anymore. It's Dark something. I want to say. Well, anyway,
Yeah.
it's been a minute. But yeah, but I haven't. Do you have one you recommend?
Not off the top of my head, but I just know that like I get into the like the murder documentary style one, like the
Oh yeah.
yeah. So there's just like a whole bunch of them.
There's one that Michael Caine's do.
Yeah.
Have you heard that one? I can't think of the name right now.
I may have heard one. Usually I just go on Spotify and there's like a whole playlist and
I gotcha.
Run through them. And so like
as
far as like who or what they are, it's
he's done a whole. I can't remember what it's called right now, but it's like true crime stories that he's narrating, and pretty neat.
Yeah,
because he's often played the shyster.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to do before we call it a day on the podcast, what's one piece of advice you have for musicians out there?
Well, I have two pieces. The first one is be true to yourself and do what you believe in. You will never be wrong. If you do what you believe in, you'll never be wrong. Okay. It may not lead to selling out 80,000 seat arenas, but that doesn't mean being an artist and being poor do not have to be synonymous. And that doesn't mean you can still be affluent, you can still be happy, you can still be successful. Just if you always do what you believe is right. And I just don't think that would be wrong. The other thing is take the time to educate yourself on your craft. And that can be done a lot of different ways. I personally believe in higher education and going to a college or a university, but that is not for everybody. That's not the way that everybody learns. Everybody learns differently. So however you learn, just make sure you find a trusted source that's not going to lead you wrong, and learn from them. One way is just to surround yourself with really talented people and just be where music's being made and be around people that are talented and see if you can't just be part of their support network and help them out, and by helping them learn from them, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I don't know everything. I mean, there's no shame in saying I don't know, but those are the things I think are best. For me, like I say, I'm going to school for the second time. I'm going to Berkeley and working towards a master's degree in music business. And for me, that was the best option. And the reason I love Berkeley so much is the people that are teaching these classes are, work at Warner Brothers or work at Sony, or if they didn't, they used to, or whatever. So, knowledge is power. And if you can understand what's happening in the music business by keeping yourself educated and current in what's going on, you'll be able to position yourself for the next trend rather than trying to catch a wave that's already gone by. So those are the two biggest things. Just be true to yourself and just keep educating yourself and spending time improving the craft. And those two things will never lead you wrong. And there's 1,000 other things I could say, but those are at the core, that's the big one.
Awesome. Yeah, that's absolutely perfect. One final thing: pineapple pizza, yes or no?
I've never tried it.
Okay.
But I would say instinctually I would be against it. But I'm willing to try it once. I'll try almost anything once. So I would give it.
I'm personally not a fan of it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to break that stigma because I think it is a very regional thing.
Probably so. Well, it just sounds like tomato sauce and pineapple. And I don't know. It doesn't sound appealing, but like I said, I'll try it once. Nothing won't kill me.
What I am finding though is it's a very coastal and southern thing.
It does sound coastal, and it seems like it would be, beachy.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of southern states that enjoy it because of like the whole sweet and savory, like grits type thing.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm just further expanding my scientific research, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, so far I haven't tried it, so I can't read your opinion. But as I say, it doesn't sound appetizing to me. But I've been wrong before. I've just got my wife after a number of years. I won't say how old she is because you're not supposed to tell a lady's age. But to finally eat Brussels sprouts. So took a lot of work. Oh, let me tell you what I'm more proud of. I am more proud that I have worn her down, and she now loves Monty Python.
Okay.
That took some effort.
Yeah.
A lot. That's how I knew she was the perfect woman for me, because she's willing to give anything a try, and eventually thought that Monty Python was funny. I mean, it took 17 years of marriage, but I still won.
Yeah. That's yeah. That's so funny.
Because a lot of girls don't like Monty Python.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's not to like.
Oh, so where can everybody find you online? Where can they find your music? You know, all that fun stuff.
JoeyStuckey.com, JoeyStuckey.com is a good catch-all place. I'm also on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Apple Music, iTunes, Deezer, pretty much all the places you'd expect to find independent music. My Twitter and Instagram handle is at JStuckeyMusic. That's the letter J, and then Stuckey, so at JStuckeyMusic. Facebook is Facebook/Joey Stuckey, let's see, I think that covers all of them. Yeah, and you'll see us. My van and my trailer have my name on the side on it. So if you see us on the road somewhere, feel free to stop and say hello.
Awesome. Absolutely. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for
My pleasure, Tom.
to sit down and chat. It's been a fun chat. You know, I saw the Cubs thing and I was just like, oh no, this is gonna go to a weird place. But it's all good. So once again, thank you for giving us the time to sit down and chat. And thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll catch you guys later.
Thanks, Tom. Have a good night, buddy.